All right, instant reaction here to the Pelicans and Portland Trail Blazers trading CJ McCollum to New Orleans. I'm Jake Madison, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast. I'm joined by Mike Richmond, host of the Locked On Blazers podcast. Mike, I went on your show this week, actually, and we talked about basically this trade, and it almost went down exactly as we were kind of expecting it. To recap it really quickly for everyone, the Pelicans get CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Tony Snell, and the Blazers get Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Didi Louzada, Tomas Satoransky, and a protected first round pick that probably is maybe going to get kicked to another year. And there's some seconds involved as well. Honestly, this one just kind of makes sense for both sides to me. I think it's really kind of as simple as that, right?
Yeah, you can see it from the Blazers' perspective. They get a good role player in Josh Hart who can help them be good now, but not too good, so they can get their draft pick. And they get out from under CJ McCollum's money, and they're set up to be, I don't want to use this word because it's meaningless, but flexible in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. I think it kind of accomplishes what both teams wanted. The Pelicans, who are one of the worst offensive teams in the league, one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league, get a guy that's a 20-point per game scorer for the last 7 years, including this one. And for his career, he's 40% from three. Is his contract a little much? Yeah, probably, $30 million plus this year, $30 million each of the next 2 years plus. But I think it's a move they kind of have to make. There's a little bit of desperation to it, but it's like a poker player who's starting to get short stacked. Eventually, you're going to get a hand that's good enough and you go all in with it. And the Pelicans kind of did that with CJ McCollum here. And I think Larry Nance Jr. getting thrown in, if he's healthy, is a nice little like something extra for this deal. But for Portland, who's trying to, it feels like retool for at least 1 year, right? Like this is similar to, I think, the Golden State Warriors on like a 1 year stealth tank, something along those
generous,
lines,
but yeah,
to build it back up around Dame, right?
Yeah, they want to be good in the fall, and this trade gives them an opportunity to do that. They get a draft pick. They potentially have 2 lottery picks. They'll have a lot of cap space, somewhere between 20 and 45 million, depending on what they do. Cap space isn't super valuable for free agency, but it might be for trades, which is going to be valuable for a non-glamour market. So it gets them closer to the path, but they got worse. Like, let's be real. They're worse today, but they wanted to be worse, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, and look, the Pelicans are fighting for the 10th spot, and they really want to sniff the postseason. I think this move helps them this year accomplish that. I think CJ McCollum also next year and in future seasons is a guy that's going to fit around Zion Williamson really well. Anytime you can get an elite shooter like that, put him around your big who can score at will around the rim is a really great thing. And I think it also shows to Zion that this team is really committed to trying to win, and maybe that eases some of the tension between him and the organization. What surprised me about this, though, was that the deal is actually official. Like the press releases have gone out. I thought this might not get done like officially official until Thursday, but it doesn't seem like this deal is going to expand anymore. So where does that leave Portland? And are they done at the trade deadline, or do they have more potentially coming?
They're probably not done. They're still going to try to trade Eric Bledsoe, who they acquired in the Norman Powell, Robert Covington swap with the Clippers. Bledsoe has a non-guaranteed or partially guaranteed contract for next season, but he makes $18 million, which is the going rate for a starter in the NBA, or an Eric Bledsoe if you're lucky. So I don't think they're done, but it wouldn't surprise me if they can't thread the needle on any more moves. I got a question for you. Were you surprised that the Pelicans had to include relatively valuable first to get a guy like CJ McCollum?
No, not really. They already kind of owe this pick somewhat to Charlotte for the Devontae Graham move this offseason. It's non-lottery. It's lottery protected for the Pels, and they basically just traded the lottery protection unless it lands in the top 4 and they happen to keep it. So they're essentially trading picks 5 through 13
Right.
to Portland here. It's a narrow window, I think. And certainly I think Portland's going to get an actual first round pick over this. I don't think it'll convert to 2 seconds or anything like that. But honestly, for how good CJ McCollum is, and if there's one skill you want to be elite at in the NBA right now, being a shooter and a 3-point specialist in a sense is a really
Especially
good
off the
skill to have.
dribble.
Exactly. And it's the offense. He can just create his own shot, and the Pelicans have no one outside of Brandon Ingram that can do that. So when you and I had discussed this deal, we kind of landed on maybe 2 first-round picks, even if they're lottery protected, from the Pelicans going towards Portland. So when I saw this deal come out and it said only 1 first-round pick, I felt pretty good about that, honestly. And I wonder if maybe that Norm Powell deal kind of devalued things in a slight way. But no, I think, 1 is pretty fair, I think, for a guy at that level, even if he's above 30 and even if he makes $33 million. Was this about what you thought it would end up being? Did you expect Larry Nance to be included in this deal?
I was going to say Nance is the surprising part. He wasn't very good here, but I think Larry Nance is good at basketball. So I think in another setting, he might be good. I think in New Orleans, he might be really valuable. He was miscast as a 4. He's probably a small 5 just because of the shooting. He can pass. He can defend. He can handle a little bit. He's got some value. It didn't work here. He was a bad fit next to Yusuf Nurkic. He was playing backup 4 next to Cody Zeller. If you put him in a better positional fit, I think he can help. And I was a bit surprised that he was like a throw-in in this deal. But maybe just money-wise, the Blazers wanted to get off his money for next season because they're prioritizing the Ben Simmons dream in the summer, and they want as much money as possible to make that dream at least in a possibility.
Yeah, that's one thing they've done over these past 2 deals is saved a significant amount of money. They're out of the luxury tax. They're resetting that counter. I think that's a really important thing for them to do. And as you said, flexibility is a nice buzzword to throw around at a time like this. It just becomes like a very pivotal offseason for Portland, right? Like you've got to get it right now around Damian Lillard. Otherwise, you've got to wonder, I'm sure you hate this sort of question of like, is he going to start to get upset and potentially want out?
Yeah, Dame was involved in this. I don't think they would have made this trade without his blessing. I literally just walked by him on the court. He's here. He talks to Joe Cronin all the time. This happened with Dame's approval. He knows the plan. I will say this particular deal makes it so if it does come to that and Dame's like, you blew it, get me out of here, they can pivot to a rebuild like immediately. They haven't committed long-term money or yada, 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 yada. They're in a position to go either path. They can go in and try to win with Dame, or they can pull the plug and be in a rebuild like immediately.
No, it's good to at least have options and not necessarily be committed to this. Final question from me to you on this one. Any idea about what might happen with Jeremy Grant? We've now heard that maybe Portland is going after him. Is that a move that makes sense for the team, or is that someone trying to drive the price of Jeremy Grant up?
Probably both, to be honest. The Blazers don't have is that fair? Okay, they don't have 2 NBA quality forwards on the roster right now. They have Justice Winslow and, depending on your opinion of Trendon Watford, your listeners will appreciate that. Shout out to LSU. But they just have 9 guards on the roster. So getting Jeremy Grant would help because he's an NBA player who plays forward in the league. That's useful. You would assume that maybe they try to reroute this pick or maybe their own pick and Eric Bledsoe for Jeremy Grant. But is Bledsoe and a lightly protected pick enough to get Grant, or is this posturing by someone else? I think it would help. I think the Blazers would do it if they could, but yeah, you know the deal. You know what time it is. You know what day of the week.
Look, it's all a lot of talk until we actually get to Thursday,
right.
Except Tuesday, everything exploded in the NBA, including CJ McCollum coming down to New Orleans to pair next to Zion Williamson, maybe one day, but Brandon Ingram for right now. So for more on this trade, be sure to check out the Locked On Blazers podcast and Locked On Pelicans, and be sure to subscribe to Locked On NBA.